Salam everyone. Welcome to the Pure Quran Guidance YouTube channel. This is episode 5 of God's Level Earth series. This episode is called The Local Sun, where I will explain sunrises and sunsets and more information about the East and the West. Please make sure to watch episode 1 to 4 first. Do not watch this video if you have not watched episode 1 to 4. And please keep an open mind, this should not be an emotional topic. We should investigate everyone's side fully. So how far is the sun? According to mainstream science, the sun is 95 million miles away. But how do we know this?
How could ancient Greeks figure out the distance to the sun without knowing its size? And how could you do this on your own?
You can use the moon. You look at phases of the moon. So the sun illuminates half of the moon at any given time. And so we on Earth, we also see half the moon, but it's a different half. And so because of that, we get phases of the moon. So sometimes you get a full moon, sometimes you get a new moon over here, and sometimes you get a half moon.
You can pretty much rediscover for yourself a way to estimate the distance to the sun by asking when exactly a half moon occurs. From the name, you would guess that it's halfway between a new moon and a full moon, but that's actually not true.
Half moon occurs not when the moon and the sun make a right angle at the Earth, but actually when the Earth and the sun make a right angle at the moon.
Hopefully this makes some sense. For us to see a half moon, it means that the side of the moon that we see facing us overlaps by exactly 90 degrees with the side of the moon being illuminated by the sun, which in turn means we have a right angle at the spot labeled here.
Half moons are slightly closer to new moons than they are to full moons.
Of course, in this graphic, the effect is very exaggerated because the sun is being drawn so close to the Earth. How far away the sun is determines when exactly that half moon occurs. The farther away, the closer it is to the true halfway point.
And if you can work out that angle, you have worked out the angle of a right angle triangle involving the distance to the moon, the distance to the sun.
So the question becomes, did they prove that the sun is 95 million miles away? Unfortunately, no. Their evidence assumes the following. They're assuming that the Earth is in fact a globe. They're assuming that the moon orbits the Earth. They're assuming that the Earth is orbiting the sun. They didn't provide any evidence for any of these assumptions. But these are other topics which we'll get into in future videos, which I will show inshallah, that they also use assumptions to prove the Earth is a ball, the moon orbits the Earth, and that the Earth is orbiting the sun. From the video, they never proved the sun is 95 million miles away. They only used a bunch of assumptions to calculate the sun's distance. 6116. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. And if you obey most of those upon the earth, they will mislead you from the way of Allah. They follow not except assumptions, and they are not but guessing. In this video, I will show through observations that the sun is not 95 million miles away and is local, and involves reality, not assumptions. I will now present to you some evidence that the sun is in fact local and not 95 million miles away, using real high-altitude balloon footage. So I'm going to show you some high-altitude balloon footage of the sun, and you're going to see that the sun is local and not 95 million miles away, inshallah. So according to the globe, that sun that you're seeing there is actually 95 million miles away. So it's 95 million miles away from the camera. It may appear as if it's right there, but it's actually 95 million miles away from the Earth. So I've created an illustration for you here. Imagine this is the Earth. It's a ball, okay? And this is not even to scale. This is actually giving favor to the globe. So this is the Earth here. This star here that I drew, let's imagine it's the camera like above the Earth on the balloon, okay? The camera's here. It's looking towards the horizon, right? So the camera's here. It sees the sun here, right? And under the sun, there's something called a hotspot. I'll explain that in a second. But the sun that you're seeing here isn't actually here. You're seeing the sun that's actually 95 million miles all the way up here. So the sun you're seeing there isn't really there according to the globe. It's actually 95 million miles away from the Earth. So the sun that's 95 million miles away that way is somehow casting a hotspot directly under where the sun appears to be, right? So the camera is here. It sees the sun here. Directly underneath it, you can even see like the line coming off it. Like you see like a line coming off it, hitting here, casting a hotspot under where it appears to be, but it's not really here. It's actually 95 million miles this way, away from the Earth. Now this isn't even to scale. So if I zoom in, because we have to actually zoom into the Earth to actually get to start to see the scale now. So if we zoom in, I've created 3 dots here. This green dot, imagine that's the camera. This yellow dot is the sun. And this red dot is the hotspot underneath it. The camera is looking towards the sun. It sees the sun. Underneath it is the red hotspot. Underneath it is the hotspot. Yet the sun you're seeing that isn't really there. It's actually 95 million miles away. This way. 95 million miles this way. So the sun is actually 95 million miles this way, yet is casting a hotspot directly under where the sun appears to be, right? And this is like 1 pixel of the Earth. Look at the video. It's like a tiny little patch, but this is a very small surface area of the Earth. So a sun 95 million miles away appears to be really close and really big and casts a tiny little hotspot underneath it. But it's actually not above it. It's 95 million miles. It's not here casting down, right? The hotspot. It's actually this way and then also casting underneath at the same time. Pinpoint accuracy. And it's like a 1 pixel hotspot under where the sun appears to be of the Earth's surface. Now this is for a flat Earth. I invite everyone to come to reality. Earth is flat. Camera is here above the Earth on a balloon. The sun is above the Earth locally, moving above. Camera looks towards the sun. Sun is close. It's big. Directly under the sun, the hotspot. Exactly what we observe. So according to the globe, the sun you're seeing there is actually 95 million miles away. And again, the hotspot directly under it, tiny little speck on the Earth. The sun 95 million miles away is just casting a tiny hotspot directly under where the sun appears to be. Now this is for a flat Earth. I invite everyone to come to reality. Earth is flat. Camera is here above the Earth on a balloon. The sun is above the Earth locally, moving above. Camera looks towards the sun. Sun is close. It's big. Directly under the sun, the hotspot. Exactly what we observe. Unless you want to be a glober and believe the sun you're seeing right there is actually 95 million miles away from the Earth. So is that sun 95 million miles away or directly above the Earth, casting a hotspot directly underneath it? I think it's pretty clear which one is reality. Flat Earth, camera looking towards horizon, sun there above the Earth locally, hotspot directly underneath it.
The Earth. Is it really just a big ball floating in space? Spinning on its axis at 1,000 miles per hour? Hurtling around the sun at 67,000 miles per hour? Whizzing through the Milky Way at a milk-curdling speed of over 500,000 miles per hour? And warp driving through the heaven at over 500 million miles per hour? And what about the sun? Is it really 93 million miles away and close to 1 million miles in diameter, with a circumference of nearly 3 million miles? And it's constantly illuminating half of our entire Earth's surface with the rotation of the Earth, creating our 24-hour days, our night and days? Or, shh, the Earth is flat. still, just like we experience. And maybe the sun isn't big, but is very small and very close, and not illuminating the Earth from 93 million miles, but is illuminating locally. And maybe everything, the sun, moon, and stars, are not far away, but are circling overhead relatively close. In this video, we're going to explore the latter option, and at the end, we're going to reveal startling evidence through the use of time-lapse photography that the sun cannot possibly be 93 million miles away, but is in fact very close and is illuminating locally as it traverses our flat Earth. Oh man, and watch how this sun comes at you. Boom! I mean, come on. And that's all perspective. If you look at jet trails, Google Images, you'll see them. They start out low at the horizon, they come up overhead. Look at.
So what he's explaining is perspective. So you can see all these lights, they're the same height. Notice how this light appears higher than this light, which appears higher than this light, which appears higher than this light, which appears higher than all the lights in the distance. So as a light or an object above you gets further away from you, it'll go lower towards the horizon. See? This street is flat. This street is level. These lights are all at the same height. As you're driving along the road, you'll see they're all the same height. But they appear, the ones that are further away from you appear to get lower and lower. It's the same thing with these street lights. They're all the same height, but as they get further and further away from you, they appear to get lower towards the horizon. It's the same with the lights in this building. This light, this light, this light, this light, this light, and this light are all the same height, but the ones that are further away from you are lower than the ones that are closer to you. So same with the sun. When it's above you, it's high. As it gets further away from you, it gets lower in the sky, lower in the sky, lower in the sky, lower in the sky, lower in the sky. Even though it's actually maintaining the same height. So it's moving away from you, maintaining the same height, yet appears to get lower and lower in the sky. And as the sun approaches you, it starts low. As it gets closer, it gets higher and higher and higher and higher and higher and higher. Even though it's not actually changing height on its path, it only appears to do so for you. Same with these lights. Look, this light at the distance, the ones that's closer seems higher, yet they're all the same height.
That thing. They come up overhead and then they go down to the horizon. Perfectly explains what the sun would do. Here it is going overhead.
So what he's explaining here is that you're showing the jet trails from the planes. When planes fly, they fly at the same height, right? They're flying level at the same height. Yet, as the plane gets further away from you, it appears to get lower and lower in the sky, as you can see by the jet streams. Same thing with the clouds. The clouds that are closer to you appear higher in the sky. The clouds that are further away from you appear lower in the sky. All these clouds are the same height, yet the clouds that are closer to you appear higher in the sky, and the clouds that are further away from you appear lower in the sky, even though they are all the same height. So the sun moves above us, and as it gets closer to us, it'll rise in the sky, and as it gets further away from us, it'll appear to get lower in the sky towards the horizon, even though it's maintaining the same height.
I love time lapse. And look at this. You can't go out and look at the sun. You can't see this stuff, except that it's on, time lapse like this. It's incredible. Now watch this thing. It's sweeping. The sun over flat Earth is doing a big circle, right? Look at this thing. See it sweeping to the right? It's like a lefty bowler. Just toss that down the alley, and there it goes, hooking into the pocket. See how the clouds angle down to the horizon. I shot it there. That's exactly how the sun would do on flat Earth. Okay, next I'm going to show you how a sun that is circling over the Earth, that creates the horizontal aspect of the sun. If you combine that with perspective, which creates the up and down of the sun, the rising and the setting, you get the 23.5 degree tilt that they talk about. It's nothing but perspective and the circling sun. here's another sun sweeping out a big circle. Okay, here's a phenomenon that you might be wondering, how in the heck do you explain this on a flat Earth? Well, this footage is taken from Alaska during the summer, and the sun does look like it's going up and down. The reason it's doing that is that this town in Alaska is not in the center of the sun's circular circuit. In other words, the sun is making a big circle, and the town is not in the center of that circle. So the sun will be closer and further from the viewer with the camera. That will cause it to go higher and lower, and also maybe even bigger and smaller. Look at the high altitude airplane. Remember, this is from a high altitude balloon. So that airplane is probably at cruising altitude. Notice how it looks like it's going up from the horizon. That's exactly how the sun will rise, because that plane is staying parallel to the ground. And now watch, it'll go down to the other horizon. All right, again, perspective, that's how the sun will set. And forget the big ball, that's just due to a GoPro camera. But see how the sun, that's the point of this. And then also, look at the size of the sun, man. Look at that thing. I mean, there's something to it to say that we're higher up our view and the sun looks bigger, and it looks like it's not as high in the sky as it does when we're on the ground. Something to that. Let's explore this notion a bit further, that the sun looks bigger when filmed from higher up. The next 3 slides, I'm going to do a comparison, a side by side. The one on the left, the camera is above the clouds. The camera on the right is ground level. And the point for the side by side comparison from the ground level and the level above the clouds is that above the clouds we're only maybe a mile or so up, and if the sun appears to be closer to the camera, well, that means it's probably much closer, because if the sun were 93 million miles away, a mile closer wouldn't make any difference at all to its visual appearance. Okay, here's a little illustrator or a little cartoon from a website called timeanddate.com. It's really funny that they would have a perfect illustration of a sun rising and setting on a flat Earth due to perspective. You'll notice that it rises from below the horizon and sets below the horizon. Now you might be saying, well, how's that possible? I can see now you're saying that it rises and lowers due to perspective, but how does it disappear below the horizon? Well, I got a theory about that. Because of the fact that all parallel lines and planes converge at your eye level horizon, this is according to the perspective, I'm not making this up. If in fact, and they do, they converge at your eye level horizon visually, then it makes sense that after that point they diverge, meaning they then separate. So the sun would continue on a downward track. As you can see from my illustration here, the lines would go to your horizon, and then afterwards they would spread out and separate, kind of like a starburst, and the starburst being at your horizon, at your focal point.
So that's the first part of the explanation. The second part of the explanation is about atmospheric refraction, and it answers the question, why doesn't the sun get smaller as it moves away from us? So if the sun really is local and sunsets are caused by perspective, as the sun moves away from you, it appears to get lower in the sky, it doesn't answer the question, why doesn't it get smaller? Because when an object moves away from you, when a light moves away from you, it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. This answers the question. So as you can see from this video, as the sun gets closer to us, it appears to get higher and higher and higher. Now in the atmosphere, there's a lot of water, and water refracts and bends light. So it acts as a lens. So as the sun moves away from us, we have to look through more atmosphere to be able to see it. So as it's moving away from us, we look through more atmosphere, and more atmosphere means more water, and more water means more refraction and more atmospheric lensing.
See what happens when we add in our atmospheric magnification. Again, water and refraction. Water causes magnification and refraction, right? So let's bring the sun back. Oh, check this out. Refraction bends the light downward. It made the sun set on a parallel surface. As it was moving parallel, the same height, the whole way over a flat surface, the refraction caused the sun to set. Not only that, well, let's bring in the beginning of that little test, and we see that it maintained pretty much the same size, too.
It absolutely would not retain the same angular size.
And of course, that's because as it's moving away, the magnification is still taking place. And so even though let's just say the bottom of this little stand here represents the bottom of the clouds. And so as you can see here, the light is way above, it's well above what would be the bottom of the clouds in this example. So let's see what happens. I turned off the lights and set my iPhone to record, and I'm showing myself here recording all of this with another camera, and I pulled the light back on the table, and watch what happens here. Ooh, check it out. And there's that refraction taking place again. It's got the light. It made the sun set, first of all, below the horizon in this case. And let's just show, this is just the iPhone view. I'm going to bring the cloud in here, and the platform represents the bottom of the clouds. So the sun's going down, and oop, there it is. The bottom of the clouds illuminated by a light source that's well above the clouds, moving parallel over a flat surface.
So to show evidence of what I'm saying, right, I'm claiming that the reason why the sun doesn't appear to get smaller as the sun sets, even though it should if the Earth is flat because it's moving away from you, is because there's a lot of water in the atmosphere, which acts as a lens. But there are actually some places where there's less water in the atmosphere than others. For example, in the desert, it's less humid, so there's less water in the atmosphere. Less water in the atmosphere means less lensing and atmospheric refraction. The sun will actually shrink like we would expect on a flat Earth, and I'll show you.
Right here, which apparently was shot in the desert, where there's going to be a lot less moisture. And so whenever there's less moisture, you're going to obviously have less refraction and magnification.
You don't get to pick the anomalies that seem to agree with your views and ignore the common observations that don't, and still call yourself an honest investigator. That is
So you can see clearly in the desert where there's not much water in the atmosphere, so there is less atmospheric lensing, the sun will shrink as it gets further away from you. So you can see clearly in the desert where there's not much water in the atmosphere, so there is less atmospheric lensing, the sun will shrink as it gets further away from you. So that's the explanation for the sunset. It's perspective and atmospheric refraction. And then in the description, I'll also include some extra videos you can watch if you want, which are recordings of sunsets using a solar filter. So you can see that the sun does change size as it sets, which shouldn't happen on the globe. It should remain the same size since the sun is 95 million miles away. Now, if you remember in the last episode, we discussed about the east and the wests. Allah is the Lord of all the east and the west, meaning 3 or more. He is the Lord of the 2 easts and the 2 wests, which is talking about the 2 identical ones. One spins around here, east and west, and sometimes the sun will move around here. This is also another east, another west. And he's also the Lord of the east and the west, in singular, is talking about this one here. So if we compare it to the globe, when we talk about navigation, when people say that they are circumnavigating the globe, when they say they're going around the ball here and coming back on the other side, right? They're going this way and then coming out on the other side. They're actually just doing a circle around here. When people say that they're circumnavigating the globe in the south, they're going this way, coming out the other side. They're just doing a circle around here. And when people say they are circumnavigating on the equator, going around this way and coming out on this side, they're actually just going this way, up. Whoa, what did you guys notice? If you go this way, right, on the flat earth, you're not going to end up on the other side. But according to the globe, if you go this way, which is this way, Africa, South America, then you keep going west, you'll end up on the other side here. But when people navigate in reality, they never do this. They never circumnavigate on the equator. They never go this way and end up this way. What they actually do is either do circles in the north, like this, or they do circles in the south, like this, or they travel back and forth between these areas here. Or they might go this way, for example, and then come this side here. Come this way and then travel this way. Go this way to get, let's say from Australia, they go from Australia, New Zealand, from New Zealand to America. So when people ask, like, where's the edge? Where's the edge? Why doesn't anyone ever find the edge? It's because they're doing circles here. When they navigate east and west. So when they leave, for example, America and they want to go to, let's say, Asia over here, they'll go west, right? So they'll go this way and end up here. They're just following east and west, which is a circle. So they'll do circles up here, which is they think they're just going in straight lines. But it actually involves turning, which we'll get into in another episode, inshallah. Then, in the south, they do circles around here, which is them thinking they're going around here. But they never do circumnavigation on the equator. And I'm about to show you. Why? Because it's impossible. They can only circle here or do a circle here, or go the other way. They can go this way, and then they can go this way or this way, depending. So that they'll either circle around here, travel between here and here and here, circle around here, or travel back and forth between here. They're all staying in this little box here. They go around here, they go around here in circles, they go around here in circles, or they travel back and forth between here. They never go, oh, let me go from America and just go straight and see what's over this way, or go this way and see what's over this way, or go this way and see what's over this way, or go this way and see what's over this way. They just travel in circles here, east to west, or back and forth, north to south. They just stay in this area here, either doing circles here, traveling here, or traveling up and down. But on the globe, you should be able to circumnavigate on the equator, going this way, and you come out on this side. So in the last video, we talked about the rising and the setting place of the sun. During the equinox, the sun will move along the equator towards the west and teleport to the east. So it goes to the west, goes to the setting place where it sits in a muddy spring, and then starts rising from the east. I just wanted to show you guys something interesting that I found on how if you wanted to go to the setting place, it would be a little bit more difficult than you would think. So let's say I wanted to go to the setting place so that I could see the sun setting in the muddy spring during the equinox. I would have to go west on the equator from Ecuador, which is in South America. So I would go west this way, and I would go this way, and I would go this way. And then as I'm heading this way, along the equator are two islands called Howland and Baker Island. And this is located right on the equator between the east and the west. So let's say I went this way on the globe west, I would end up on the east. But right on the equator between east and west are two islands called Howland Island and Baker Island. So as I'm heading west to go to where this muddy spring is, I don't know how far it is. I might have to travel west to get there. But as I'm heading west, I'll run into these two islands. And unfortunately, these two islands are a government-protected zone, protected by the Coast Guard. There is a 400 nautical mile diameter protected zone by the US Coast Guard. So as I traveled west, I would hit these islands, and then because these islands are a government-protected zone with military ships around here, I would then get arrested if I tried to cross this area here, this small area here. Same thing, if I went east to try to go east to the rising place, this island is literally on the connection between the east and west. So it's also on this side. So there would also be a government protected zone on the east protecting these two islands, which are located right on the equator between east and west. So on the equator between east and west are two islands that just happen to be government protected zones to protect the wildlife, etc. So I can't actually travel west on the equator because I'll run into the two islands and that's a government protected zone. The muddy spring could literally be on those two islands. It could be on the island. It could be near it or past it or within the area. I don't know that because I'm not allowed to go there because it's a protected zone to protect it for wildlife, etc. If I went east, I would also get stopped because they're blocking me from reaching these two islands, which are located between the east and west on the globe. You should be able to take a boat, go this way, end up on this side. But actually, if you took a boat and you went this way, you'd run into those two islands and you would get arrested. So right on the spot between east and west, to test that you can go from the east to the west, are two islands that have government protection, which have military there. So if you tried to go west along the equator to see if you would end up on the east, on this side, you'd get stopped either on this side or on this side because that's where the islands are located. So if I went this way, I would then have to go around. I would have to go, okay, let's avoid this spot. So I'd have to head either north or south. So let's say I went north, right? If I started heading north, because I moved off this equatorial east and west, my east and west would change. Now my west would become this one. So if I went this way, I would then be traveling. My west would be going up this way now. And I ended up doing this, right? If I went east, I have to avoid the islands. And I went north to go around it. My east would then become this. And I would then be going this way. Or if I went this way and avoid these islands, I have to come south. My west would then become this one, right? Because it depends on your position. So people might be going this way. Oh, I want to go along the equator to navigate. Military zone. Okay, sorry, you got to go a bit north or they arrest you. Let's say you go north to avoid it. Now your west becomes this. Because see what happens. But the main focus is if you wanted to go to the Muddy Spring area, you'd have to go west. But right there is government protected zone. So there's literally ships here protecting some islands. So maybe you could go this way, go around it, but forget about east and west now. Now you don't want to go west because you've moved off the equator. You'd have to like go this way west and then like head north a bit, but then like go left to go either to go basically go around them, right? Because it might not necessarily be here on those two islands. It could be further west. Who knows? Allah knows best how far you'd have to even go. Or even if you went east to try and find the rising place, you could see the sun appear. The two islands are here, so you'd have to go around them. But I just thought I'd show you. It's very interesting that right on the east and west, on the equator, the place where you can go from one side of the earth to the other on the globe, you do a circle, are two islands right there. And these two islands are government protected zones. So if you went there, you'd get stopped on the west side and on the east side. Right? Very interesting. The direction you would have to go to get to either the rising place or the setting place. And as always, Allah knows best. Thanks for watching.